This is R2D Tech, and we're back again this week with a really exciting video. Today we're not only going to be talking about the iPhone 11, but we're going to be comparing it to the 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max, so stay tuned.
So Apple unveiled the new iPhones about 2 weeks ago, and to be honest, although it may seem like there have been a lot of changes, Apple hasn't actually changed that much. To replace the iPhone XR, they've now released just the iPhone 11. It has the same LCD display and a new variety of colors. It comes in black, green, yellow, purple, red or white, which is a change from last year. I was quite sorry to see the coral color go, but they did it anyway. To replace the iPhone XS and XS Max, they've now got the iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max, which is a bit of a mouthful, but to be honest, there haven't been that many changes in terms of design for any of the iPhones this year. Now, they have added a matte back to the iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max. And it now comes in one extra color, which is midnight green, which kind of looks more like grey to me, to be honest. But a lot of people do seem to like it, so I'm excited to try it out. For both phones, probably the biggest design change has been the square camera bump on the back. Now, for the iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max, you've got 3 cameras in there, and for the 11, you've got just 2 cameras, but we'll talk about the cameras later. You have also got a new tempered glass on the back of both of the iPhones. I should mention that on the 11, it's just a glossy back, whereas on the Pro, it's a matte back, which to me looks a lot nicer than just the glossy. As before, the 11, which replaced the XR, has a aluminium frame, which is the same as before, and the 11 Pro has a stainless steel frame, which is the same as the XS.
Now let's talk about what's powering these beasts. On all 3 of these phones, you've got the new A13 Bionic chip, which is actually definitely the most powerful chipset you can find in any smartphone right now. That's one thing that Apple weren't lying about. All of the phones have 4 gigs of RAM, which doesn't sound very good compared to Samsung phones, which have up to like 12 gigs of RAM, and OnePlus and other companies. But actually with iOS, this is definitely more than enough. Mainly to do with the efficiency of the software. It doesn't actually need to be that powerful. And also coupled with the A13 Bionic chip, the whole system is very efficient. Now in terms of display size, the iPhone 11, which is the equivalent of the XR, has a 6.1 inch display. Now this is exactly in between the 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max. The 11 Pro has a 5.8 inch display, and the 11 Pro Max has a 6.5 inch display. Now, for me, the 11 Pro Max is way too big, but if you're a power user, that might be the phone for you. Personally, I think the 11, which is in between the Pro and the Pro Max, is the best size for a smartphone. It's not too big, it's not too small. One important thing to mention though is that the 11 has a liquid retina display, which actually just means it's an LCD display with curved edges. Now that is going to mean it's not going to be as vibrant and nice to watch content on as the Pro and the Pro Max. That's because the Pro and the Pro Max both have OLED displays, very similar if not the exact same panels that Samsung use on their phones. But what was really good about the Pro and the Pro Max this year is that they can sustain a brightness of 800 nits for an extended period of time, whereas the 11 can only do this around 600 nits. So you will see that the Pro and the Pro Max are a lot brighter and more vibrant than the 11. Another thing that might be important, but I wouldn't try it, is the IP68 water and dust resistance rating, which you get on all of these phones. Now that means that you can take the phones up to 2 meters for 30 minutes. They do advertise on some websites 4 meters for 30 minutes, but I definitely wouldn't try that at home. In terms of storage, you can actually max out the 11 at 256 gigabytes, whereas with the Pro and the Pro Max you can go all the way up to 512 gigs. Now there's no extendable storage on the iPhone, so you definitely want to pick something that's going to last you at least 1 or 2 years. The iPhone 11 has a 3046 milliamp hour battery. The iPhone 11 Pro has a 3190 milliamp hour battery, and the iPhone 11 Pro Max has a 3969 milliamp hour battery. Now, as you can see, this is in ascending order from the budget phone all the way up to most expensive. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the Pro Max is going to have the best battery life. In fact, the iPhone 11 will actually have the best battery life out of all of them. That's not only because of the efficient A13 Bionic chip, but also the fact that it runs an LCD display, which requires way less battery than the OLED displays which the Pro and Pro Max run. But out of the Pro and the Pro Max, it's not going to be such a big difference because they both run OLEDs, and the Pro Max's OLED display is larger than the Pro's, so it will kind of even out. They'll both have similar battery life. One thing which is definitely important to mention is that all of these phones still have a Lightning port instead of USB-C, but in the box with the Pro and Pro Max you're going to get a fast charger, whereas with the iPhone 11 you'll just get a standard charging brick, and you'll have to buy the fast charger separately if you want that. And in addition to this, none of these phones have a headphone jack again, so you'll definitely either have to invest in a Bluetooth set of headphones or just use the standard Apple ones which come in the box, or another option would be to find some Lightning port earphones, unless you want to buy the adapter from Apple. In terms of sound quality, all of the phones have speakers which are tuned via software through Dolby Atmos, so they'll all sound really good. And I believe the Pro and Pro Max also have Dolby Vision, which is going to help with the surround sound feeling as well. The final important thing to mention is that the 11 is slightly thicker than the Pro and Pro Max, so if that's such a big deal to you, then you might want to go with the Pro or Pro Max, but to be honest, you're definitely not going to notice the difference that much.
So probably the most important upgrade for the iPhones was the cameras. Now, on the 11, you've got two cameras, a wide and an ultra wide, which is really good to see. I much prefer the ultra wide to the telephoto that was on the XS and XS Max. On the 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max, you've got a wide, ultra wide and telephoto, which is really good to see. They're kind of catching up with other phone makers like Samsung and Huawei, but it's really good to see that they've added finally an ultra wide to all their phones now. One of the most impressive things was that you can actually use the app Filmic Pro, which Apple now has a partnership with, to use all the cameras at once, including the front-facing camera, and film videos on all of them, or pictures on all of them. This could be really good for interviews. In general, these iPhones are probably some of the best phones to film videos on and to just make films on. In terms of photos, Apple has really improved their image processing this year, and the photos look really good. They're almost level with the Pixels from last year, and maybe even a little bit better. They have also added their own night mode to compete with Google's, and it is really promising. It looks just as good as Google's one, and that's really good to see. One of the most impressive things Apple announced was you can actually smoothly transition between lenses when filming a video, so you can get a different shot of the subject that you're taking a video of. And that is a really good feature for filmmakers because it makes it a lot easier to get a different shot. Another feature was that when you're taking a photo, you'll actually be able to see what the photo would have looked like if you were taking it with the ultra-wide lens. So where the shutter button is, you will be able to see the extended image of the photo that you were taking. The photo app will also save the data for the ultra-wide and telephoto lens of that particular photo for a limited amount of time. So if you wanted to get the ultra-wide shot or telephoto shot after you've taken the photo, you will be able to do that.
In conclusion, all three of these phones are great. The 11 has slightly better battery life because of the LCD display. They've all got ultra-fast A13 Bionic chips. They're all very capable in terms of display quality, whereas the Pro and Pro Max have OLEDs, which might suit you better. In general, they're just powerhouses, and they're definitely top of the range. Now, one thing to mention is that the 11 will start at £699, which is £300 cheaper than the 11 Pro, which starts around £1,000, and the 11 Pro Max will cost even more than this. So if money is a factor for you, you should definitely consider the 11. To be honest, losing out on the telephoto lens is not such a big deal. It may seem like it when you watch the keynotes, but you probably won't even use it that much. Now, personally, I like the 11 Pro the best because I feel like it's a good size, it's not too big, and it has all of the cameras, which are probably the main selling point of these new phones. And the display is just amazing with that 800 nits sustained brightness. The reason all of this stands out to me the most for the 11 Pro is, as a content creator, I feel like this phone is probably the best you're going to get out there when it comes to video, and definitely up there when it comes to photos as well. But just that Filmic Pro feature where you can film from all of the different cameras at once, that's what really caught my eye. And I think for YouTubers in particular like us, that's going to be an amazing feature to use, and maybe even for doing small interviews or documentaries. Now, on that note, another thing that's very important to mention is the audio that comes out of videos on these iPhones is actually amazing, especially if you compare it to other brands. I am a Samsung fan myself. I love the Note 10 and the S10 and the S10 Plus, but definitely the audio that comes out of these iPhones is going to be better than what you get out of the Samsung phones at this current date. But that's all from us today at R2D Tech. If you liked the video, you might consider leaving a thumbs up, and if you really loved it, then we'd really appreciate it if you just hit that subscribe button, and you can get more content from us in the future.